portions of this video. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know that when I first started asking you questions. Can you go back to the first 10 seconds of this video and make it as large as you can? And in doing so, we can still hear the sound. Is that right?
Yes.
All right.
How large?
Well, not that large.
Okay. I can go in as large as you want.
A little bit bigger than that if you can.
What's the focal point?
I want to focus on Miss McDowell's car. All right. Go ahead and hit play.
Oh.
Right there.
And start from here.
Hit play.
Still on a record of where we're starting?
Please.
At 23:21:42.
Stop, please. What's the time frame?
23:21:57.
All right, go back to Miss McDowell's car. So after the honk that I described, Miss McDowell actually put her car in reverse, didn't she?
The car went backwards, yes.
And then moves forward again, right?
I don't think it went forward. It
Okay.
just went backwards.
All right, so it goes backwards before we hear Miss McDowell make any statements audibly, correct?
Yes.
All right. Okay, now I want you to do the same thing and go to the Cowden video and blow it up just like this.
So I'm at 23:21:59.
Thank you.
And magnify it?
Can you magnify that, please? That's fine right there.
Okay. Hmm?
And just for orientation, we're going to hear the tasers, and then I asked you a very poor question about growling in a statement. That will be included in this blown up portion of the video when you hit play, right?
Okay.
Hit play.
It shows,
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you
Yes.
recognize Exhibit 13?
I do, yeah.
And that's the CAD report with respect to the contact just preceding the interaction with Mr. Ellis on the 3rd of March 2020, right?
Yes,
And on the CAD report, it reflects a couple of different units being involved in that contact, right?
yes,
In fact, officers Rankine and Ford responded to the same location, did they not?
yes,
And they document when they are next available for service after responding to that, right?
yes,
And is that the sort of information you're talking about when you're saying, I reviewed when it was cleared?
yes.
Okay. And the time that Officer Rankine and Ford cleared it is what?
23/18/31.
Okay. And so you took that to mean that's when they entered that information in their mobile computer in their vehicle, right?
It's, well, certain, where I worked in my old department, I could clear a call by hitting in service button.
Sure.
Or I could broadcast, and then the communications operator would associate my vehicle with, cleared.
Understood. You said by looking at that document, you could probably tell us which of those it was done. Can you do that?
Given what I'm seeing, how things are reported by this agency, it appears that that column is likely an automated, because they're all consistent in the type of calls, that it's likely a button push of some kind.
Okay. And so tell us again when Rankine and Ford cleared that contact.
23/18/31.
23, 18, and 31 seconds. That's not when Burbank and Collins cleared that call, is it?
No.
In fact, they cleared the call 1 minute and 17 seconds later, right?
Yes.
And you don't know where they entered that into the computer relative to that contact, do you?
No.
In fact, are you aware that the best practice for Tacoma is to remove yourself from the location of the stop and enter it at some place different?
Objection, Your Honor, this assumes facts, not evidence.
Does he know
I
that?
asked if he knows that's the policy.
I don't know.
Okay.
All right. So you don't know if that's their practice?
Correct.
If that was their practice, I think Mr. Fricky asked you the travel time from 1.12 miles of that location to 96 in Ainsworth would take less than 2 minutes, right? Potentially.
Potentially.
And so if that's their practice, that very well could have been entered as they sat at the light at 96 in Ainsworth.
I wouldn't be able to answer that question.
Okay. If that's the case, there's 113 seconds from that entry to the first video we saw from Vivint. You'd agree with that?
Yes.
Meaning up to 2 minutes of potential interaction that may not have been captured by audio or video.
Objection, Your Honor, false speculation.
Yeah. When I agreed with
If you can answer, you can answer.
when I agreed with your question, I was only agreeing to they cleared at 23/19/48, a call that they were at
Yes.
over a mile away, 113 seconds before the video starts.
All right.
That's all I was agreeing to. I don't know where they were.
Understand.
Yes.
Make sure we're clear. My question is that when they hit clear, that's reported on the CAD log,
Yes.
there's 113 seconds before the video is activated on Exhibit 546 that we just watched.
Correct.
All right. And so you'd agree if they're sitting at that light when that's cleared, there's 113 seconds that are not captured.
That's not what I'm agreeing to. I don't know where they were when it was hit.
Understood. Understood. Were you ever asked to analyze any video from 2019 with regard to Mr. Ellis?
Not that I recall.
The state didn't ask you to analyze a video of him being detained and being tased?
Objection, Your Honor. This is outside the scope of direct.
I'll permit this overruled.
No.
Are you aware that there's a video from September of 2019 showing Mr. Ellis being tased by law enforcement?
Your Honor, state renews its objection.
Overruled.
No.
All right. And nobody asked you to analyze that?
No.
All right, thank you, Judge. That's all I have.
Okay, Mr. Conrad,
Yes, Your Honor.
whenever you're ready.
Mr. Fredericks, you can stay there. Thank you.
Oh, since Mr. Conrad has been getting a personal mic, if counsel would turn off their microphones on their desks during this time. Thank you.
Certainly. So just a couple questions for you, Mr. Fredericks. So the first thing you were asked to do, what's documented in your report is that you wanted to determine the time frame from when Mr. Ellis may have purchased something at 7-Eleven to how long it takes you to get to the intersection of 96 and Ainsworth. Is that right?
That was the first question this morning related to that, yes.
Okay. And you said that you determined that by walking it yourself.
That was one way I determined it, yes.
Okay. What was the other way that you determined it?
I did an estimation of distance, average gait walk, so that was in my report, approximately 10 minutes, and then I walked it.
Okay. So in general, you were asked to determine kind of the whereabouts of Mr. Ellis prior to the incident at 96 and Ainsworth. Is that right?
Well, no, I was told that he made a purchase at the 7-Eleven. So then I asked for video, and I was told no video was recovered by the police. So then at some point I was told, but there was a transaction on his EBT card.
Okay.
And then I said, well, that might provide some timing information. Can I be provided that?
But you didn't obtain that information yourself, is that right?
No.
So the information about the transaction that he took at 7-Eleven, or supposedly took on 7-Eleven, is information that's been provided to you, is that right?
That's right.
And that's from the Attorney General's office?
That's correct.
Okay. And you're aware that there are, are you aware of Detective Rue and Detective Markin? Do you know who those people are?
I don't.
Okay. And so your work has been primarily, or actually predominantly, with the Attorney General's office?
Yes.
And their investigator, Heitzman, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And Heitzman is the one that's providing this information to you?
He did the tests that I requested.
Okay.
But he didn't provide me with the initial EBT information.
Okay. And that's essentially where you start your timeline, is 7-Eleven, is that right?
Well, eventually I obtained that data after I did my synchronization. So I created the timeline, and then at some point we did the testing.
Okay. But I guess in terms of the last moment in time leading up to 96 and the incident 96 in Ainsworth, is that your knowledge is that he's at the 7-Eleven?
My knowledge is that his EBT card was used at the 7-Eleven.
Okay.
Yes.
So and that information was provided to you by Detective or Investigator Heitzman, is that right?
No, I think that report was provided to me by the AG's office, and then I requested that the testing be made, and then they had him contact me so I could direct him as to the methodology of the testing.
Okay. And beyond that, you don't know Mr. Ellis's whereabouts prior to the 7-Eleven, is that right?
I've been given no data to tell me where he was.
Okay. Are you aware that there was a Google location information for Mr. Ellis prior to that?
That would be on his cell phone, I believe,
Okay.
but I wasn't provided that detail.
Okay. So you weren't provided any of the details regarding his Google location information prior to the 7-Eleven?
That's correct.
Okay. And so the 7-Eleven purchase, based on your testing in conjunction with the Attorney General's office, places the use of Mr. Ellis's card, EBT card, at 2311. Is that right?
Yes, and my understanding is that the property he got from 7-Eleven was there at the scene.
Okay.
Yes.
So but 2311 is what you determined to be the time that his EBT card was used at the 7-Eleven.
That's what the report showed, and then we validated the time. Yes.
Okay. And then you estimated that it takes you about 10 minutes to walk to 96 and Ainsworth.
Yes.
So that places Mr. Ellis approximately, according to your calculations, 2322 at 96 and Ainsworth. Is that right?
2321.
Okay. Oh yeah, you're right. 2321. And from then that's the first video clip that you have, and it's Exhibit 434. Can you pull up Exhibit 434? I don't know if this is the one you currently have up.
No. This isn't the first one. 434?
Yes, please.
That's not the first one. 434 starts at 2312. Just quite.
Okay. What is the first exhibit that you have that shows the beginning of your synchronization?
I don't have it. I don't have it listed. I only have the exhibit numbers. And I haven't memorized them.
Okay. Do you have? Well, let me ask you this, because you've gone through this already. You have the start time of your first synchronization at 23:21:41. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, so that's the very first Vivint video that you have that shows the police vehicle with the amber lights on.
Yes.
Okay, and that's again 23:21:41.
Yes.
Okay, so the Vivint video that you have, it doesn't show my client at that time period being there, right?
Your client is?
Officer Rankin.
Okay, I just want to be clear. Correct.
Okay. And in fact, the first time that you see Officer Rankin within any of the synchronizations that you have arriving is at 23:24:34. Is that right?
It sounds right. I could verify.
Yeah, could you verify it?
Yes.
I'm going to pull up the
Thank you.
exhibit number as well.
Thank you.
I think it's 546.
I understand why you directed me to 434, because during that exhibit is when the first time we see Mr. Rankin.
Okay.
So I give you.
Let's do that one then, because
Yeah.
that's what I had in my notes.
Yeah. But that's not the beginning of the video. That's just when we first see Mr. Rankin. I'll cue that up for you.
Sure, please. And permission to publish, Your Honor.
Which exhibit is it?
It's 434.
Proceed.
And if you could fast forward to the point that you see him.
This is the first video image, and I'll just magnify that for everybody. This is the first video image that shows Officer Rankin arriving in his vehicle at 23:24:34. That vehicle has been identified to me as the vehicle he was driving. It coincides with the dispatch information, and that's a few minutes into the event.
Okay. So, and it doesn't show, you're aware that his partner is Officer Ford, is that right?
Yes, that's
And
right.
it doesn't show Officer Ford ever getting out of the vehicle in this, does it?
It shows him moving quickly away from the driver's side, but the first time we see him, he's right at the front of the vehicle, so it doesn't show him exiting the vehicle.
Can you actually show that?
So this blur right here is the passenger, so Officer 4 getting out of the vehicle. Or, pardon me, moving away from the vehicle, and I'll go forward a few images, and this is how poor the compression is.
Okay.
And then it gets into an area of what we call prediction, where the changes of the pixels in that area didn't meet the threshold to be recorded, and so he just disappears in the image. And that's common.
And so based on this, the first image that you have from Vivint, it's 23:21:41, right? It was the start time of the first image that you have from Vivint. Prior to my client ever arriving.
23:24:34.3.
Mr. Conrad, I think you're referencing Exhibit 546 for the first Vivint video, and he's reviewing 34, which is the last.
And that doesn't include the first.
No, 546 includes the first.
Okay, can you go to 546, please? Okay, and what's the timestamp again for the start of when you first see Officer Collins and Officer Burbank's vehicle?
.23, 21, 41.3.
Okay, and we know that the altercation between Officer Burbank, Officer Collins, and Mr. Ellis has already taken place at this point in time. Is that right?
Can you rephrase that question?
Sure. So at 23:21:41, obviously Officer Burbank and Officer Collins are no longer in their vehicle at this point, right?
Yes,
Okay, so they're outside of the vehicle and they're already in contact with Mr. Ellis.
that is correct.
Okay. So, and my client arrives 2 minutes and about 34 seconds after. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. So at the time that my client arrives, Officer Rankin arrives, that based on even just the first video you have, at a minimum, the altercation's already been taking place for 2 minutes and 34 seconds.
That's correct.
That's a minimum.
Yes.
Okay. And the next video I wanted to key you towards was Exhibit 444.
Yes.
Okay. And between the arrival time of my client, 23:24:34, and what's the timestamp on this?
23:32:11.
Okay, 23:32:11. This is the next video in time that shows any of the officers. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And this video, this is the enhanced video of Ayanna White. Is that right?
I don't refer to it as enhanced, but I don't think that's inaccurate.
Okay. Well, you stabilized her video.
It's stabilized. I didn't do any processing to improve the quality or attempt to improve the quality of the images. It's simply stabilization and magnification.
Okay. And so you stabilized it and you magnified it.
Yes.
Okay. And the original of that video is Exhibit 22. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And you've reviewed this video,
Yes.
correct? And within that video, you cannot tell the positioning of the position of Mr. Ellis. Is that right?
Well, I described it to the best I could, given the limitations of the video.
Okay. And actually, can you play this video, Exhibit 444, please?
I'll play it from 23:32:11.
There's somebody in the middle of that doggy pile.
Okay.
And just to be clear, that's not the complete video. There's a few extra seconds at the end. That's just the magnified area.
Okay. And why didn't you include those other seconds in the magnified area?
Because to do the magnification, I would have to have something that's consistent within the image to magnify, to basically lock the image down, and the camera does pan around and lose that spot. So this was done for a particular request, but I didn't do that to the entire video. We're only talking about a couple of extra seconds.
Sure. And can you, we previously did this, can you go to the portion of the video where the officers part for a second that are standing around? Right there. Okay. And there you can see Mr. Ellis's yellow pants. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And you've reviewed, obviously, these videos multiple times.
Yes.
And you know that Mr. Ellis had white shoes on as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you know that, obviously, he had yellow pants on. And you're also aware that there was a request for hobbles at a certain point and that Mr. Ellis was hobbled. Is that right?
I'm aware the request was made, and I'm not clear on whether it was used.
Okay. But you never see his feet up toward, his white shoes up towards his buttocks area anywhere within that video, right?
I don't see where his feet are. Right.
Okay. And you can't tell the positioning of the officers that are surrounded around him either, is that right?
Just that a few are crouched down, and the rest are standing.
Okay. The next thing I want to ask you about is the audio that you use to create your synced video. So the radio traffic is a portion of the audio that you used within your synchronized video. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And the radio traffic, I saw some communications about this. The radio traffic, it doesn't appear to be at normal speed. Is that right?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. So the radio traffic that you have is consistent with it being played at normal speed?
Well, I was given two different versions of it, right? One was without breaks, and I'm not sure, and I basically didn't use those. I used the individual wave files that came in that appeared to be at normal speed.
Do you remember what the name of the wave file is that you used for the radio traffic for your synchronized video?
Well, I used several. Each one was a little clip. So a mic key, when the microphone is keyed, that transaction, that transmission creates a wave file. There were a lot of them. So
you used all those individual wave files in order to incorporate it within your timeline?
I did.
Okay. But there's also radio traffic and communications that were not included within your synchronized timeline. Is that right?
I did the best I could to. There were some wave files that included broadcasts from vehicles that were on different calls, not associated to this, and I remember not using those. But I used, to the best of my ability, I put in what I could from this call.
Okay. But, I mean, there are other radio communications that are made during the time period that is captured within your synchronized video that are not contained within your video that you created.
Well, as I said, I included everything that I was provided that was referencing the events here. I know there were a couple of calls about clearing another unit that was never here, finishing another call, I believe, somewhere else. And that wasn't included. But I think I incorporated everything that related to that call that I was provided.
Okay, what about communications with the fire department?
There were some, I'm trying to recall, I think there were some communications requesting fire. But I don't know if I had the fire dispatch. I don't recall.
Okay. Those aren't part of your synchronized video.
I don't recall. I'd have to go back and look. But I included everything I was provided.
Okay. Let me see. And so you've walked through a bunch of stills, obviously, of of Cowden's video, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you've walked through some of the video from Vivint as well, synchronized with Cowden's video.
Yes.
And so, this may seem obvious, but my client's not present for any of that, right?
Correct.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
So this is going to be from the exhibits, and some is just going to be questions. If it's best for you to stand throughout.
Fine, thanks.
Mr. Fredericks, you were asked several questions about the doorbell Vivint system from Mr. Fricky.
Yes.
And in reviewing all of the clips, files that you received, did you have any concerns about any edits or modifications to those files?
No.
And why not?
The system operated by the way it was designed. Is consistent with other doorbell type recording systems. The naming conventions of the files were consistent with how they should be. And I examined the metadata and the file structure themselves, and there was no edits.
And based on your knowledge and how the system works and stores the data, is one able to upload edited images into the cloud?
The owner of the system, that upload process is automated. In order to be uploaded, it has to have a certain file structure. So you wouldn't be able to one wouldn't be able to remove it, edit it, put it back together, and then have the system recognize that file and upload it.
And in your experience in reviewing doorbell camera video footage, is it common for the videos to not pick up every event that occurs?
Yes, I have a doorbell camera, and it just picks up a limited amount of information.
And you reviewed, I believe it was, the Finns provided you an exhibit this morning, 2708, I believe was the number, of the approximate 30-second clip of that occurred earlier in the evening at 10:56.
Well, I provided that
Or you provided it to them.
Yes.
And when you reviewed that, you're not able to make any determination on what triggered the recording of that video.
No.
And if we can publish States Exhibit 548, I believe we have that back here.
Oh. Excuse me.
Mr. Fredericks, you testified regarding this exhibit yesterday, and I wanted to bring your attention to where Ms. White's video starts at 23:32:05, and the video right before that of the Vivint ending at 23. Actually, start with the 23:25:03 Vivint ends.
Yes.
When does the next Vivint video start?
At 23:41:17.
And approximately how much time passes between that?
About 16 seconds. 16 minutes.
Thank you.
Pardon me.
And based on Ms. White's video and Mr. Cowden's video, we know that at that time, individuals, officers, are in front of Ms. White's house where the Vivint video is at, correct?
Yes, her video shows that.
And yet there's no video for that almost 16 minutes?
Correct.
And is that uncommon in your experience?
No, like I said, there are 3 other cameras on the system. The system has some kind of a trigger to record. I don't know what that trigger is. But yes, the officers are there. There's lots of vehicles that had arrived afterwards that weren't recorded. So it could be something else that's causing the trigger. I don't know what it is. And there could be the other cameras, something happening on the other 3 cameras that are preventing it from being recorded. But I can't know.
And you reviewed all of the Vivint videos that were available to you again last night.
Yes?
And was there random time lapses between each clip?
Yes? As depicted in the exhibit.
Put 458 down, please, or 548 down, please. Your Honor, I have a bit more to go. If you
We had our normal noon break, so if this is a good time to break, we'll do that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be